Hello and welcome back to Karma Stories. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have some stories for you from the Tales from Tech Support subreddit. Today we're just going to go right for it. Let's get our nerd on. This story comes to us from Ruse Fox Ghost. The printer issue wasn't even the printer's fault this time, nor was it user error. Basic mundane tale from yesterday. So I'm the de facto IT gal for my grandparents' church. They're a rural church, and my grandpa works in the administration. They're small, run mostly by old people, and don't have a big IT budget. So, since I'm the one tech-savvy grandchild out of all the families that run the church, my grandpa calls me when they need anything techie done. I don't make a job out of IT work, and I'm not religious, but my grandpa pays me, and I could always use the extra cash. I'm no pro, I have no training, just determination and good problem-solving skills. That's enough to seem like a pro to him, at least. So this time, it was a printer issue. Printers are the most unholy piece of work in tech, as the stories say. But at least fixing one is an actual challenge, compared to the more common issues that are usually easy fixes that old people without tech literacy can't figure out. This was a breath of fresh air, because it likely wouldn't be their fault, and I wouldn't have to hold back rolling my eyes out of politeness cause their printer has no conscience to care about it. So printer, the big unit office style one, beeps and asks you to put envelope paper in the multi-purpose tray with every print job. You have to walk down the hall to press a regular tray full of letter-sized paper with every print job. A lot of printing is done because they prefer paper record keeping. I go into the paper settings on the printer. I change everything I can to try to print from the right bin. Fail every time. I check all the print settings when going to print. Everything is set to letter size paper. I go back and forth with printer settings because it looks like it should be a printer issue, but none of the many available settings fix the issue. So my grandpa takes out his MacBook and tries to print. It prints fine. So, boom, narrowed it down to a computer issue with the Windows 11 laptop. I am used to Windows 10 and don't use 11, so it took a few minutes to find the ridiculously hidden print settings. The ones from the settings menu formerly handled by Control Panel. And 4 menus deep, where no one using the computer would ever think to look, there it was. The default paper size was set to envelope. I set it to auto, boom. Printing with letter paper selected works again. I have absolutely no clue how it changed. So I went to the other Windows 11 computer, turned it on and tested it out, same issue. Its settings were also changed to envelope in that deep hidden dialog box. I wrote a how-to fix guide for them in case there are other 11 PCs I didn't get to, but I still have absolutely no clue how it happened. And I'm going to blame Windows 11 updates, and perhaps the fact that even being in a church cannot exorcise the demons plaguing that OS. Well, at least the printer has turned to Jesus this time. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Thunder Dawn. It quotes OP saying, I have absolutely no clue how it changed. They said, 2 words, effing Microsoft. Windows 11 is a steaming pile of putrid dog crap. It continually changes crap to what it or Microsoft think you should be doing instead of what you want to be doing. I've lost track of how many times I've had to turn off the stupid smart charging feature on my laptop. Yes, Microsoft, I know continually charging my battery has a detrimental effect eventually. I don't care. Just charge the bloody thing to 100%. On the one day every 2 weeks I don't have a place to plug in, that 15% makes the difference between finishing my work for the day and having to come back with a freshly charged laptop tomorrow. I feel like OP's not seeing that somebody in this church decided they needed to print an envelope, change the setting, and clicked it to be the default. I mean, I know Windows 11 isn't all that great, although it does everything I needed to do, and updates generally don't change a whole lot for me, but I really can't see it changing printer settings when it doesn't update, especially changing the default to an envelope. There had to be some kind of human interaction that made that change. This story comes to us from Emerald Encrusted, helping a customer find an EWO cable. Alright, so this took place quite a number of years ago when I worked in sales for a tech company that sold a large number of electronics, appliances, and other technical products. On occasion, I would help out our service team if it was a slow sales day, and handled calls that would come in at their desk. This let them focus on actual work that needed to be done instead of dealing with inane customer consultation. Yes, it was very inefficient from a business standpoint to help random strangers over the phone for free. Anyway, I pick up the phone when it rings. Hi, you've reached Emerald at Company Tech Support. How are you doing today? Heavy breathing on the other end for a moment then. I need an EWO cable. Do you guys carry those? I'm sorry, a what cable? EWO. I know it sounds dumb. I've never heard of such a cable in my life, and I like to think I'm normally a pretty technical guy. What device are you needing it for, sir? That'll maybe help us narrow down what kind of cable you're looking for. It's a camera, like a professional quality video camera. My friend was a videographer, but he gave me this one after he upgraded. Said his new one was way better, and anyway, it needs an EWO cable in order to connect properly. I think it's supposed to be able to send video straight to a computer box, or something like that. Of course, sir. Alright, let's go back to basics. What's got you thinking the cable is called an EWO? It says it right on the camera, right beside the port. Can you spell out EWO for me? Sure. I-W-O-H. EWO. It says EWO. Odd. Wait a minute. What is it? Do you have an EWO cable? Sir, can you rotate the camera 180 degrees and tell me what the letters say upside down? HDMO. F me. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Thunderdon. It says, I admit it, I giggled. Did he actually say F me when he figured it out? Opie responded and said, he did, which made it quite funny. We both laughed over the phone, and I told him that we do have HDMI cables in case he actually needed one, but he already had one he could use. Okay, I can actually understand the user's confusion on this one because the HDMI on a camera is generally a mini, one of the ones that you really don't see all that often because they're generally only on things like cameras, and so it wouldn't be readily apparent if you were looking at it that it needed an HDMI cable. This one kind of reminded me of an old mechanic's tale too, with people walking in and saying that they need more 710 in their car because their oil cap was upside down. This story comes to us from Oinky Competence, Monty's IT tickets. Here's a quick story about our IT interaction with a new factory manager who was clearly hired for the wrong job. These are samples of some service requests and trouble tickets we received from Monty, the new operations manager at a small, think around 50 employee, rural manufacturing shop. This shop makes a very specific widget, and Monty was recruited from the big city several hours away to oversee widget production. Most of the tickets ended up as rejections, which might paint IT in the wrong light, as if we're always saying no, but read on, dear reader, to learn more. Monty relocates to the area. Of course, he needs internet service at his new house. So Monty's first ticket was to ask IT to set up a wireless bridge to his house from the factory so he can access the company network and internet from home. IT declines. Leadership says Monty can get his own home internet service, logically. Undeterred, Monty then wants a laptop. So Monty requisitions IT to order a custom Razer gaming laptop he'd spec'd out, because apparently that's what he needs as a manufacturing manager. IT declines and says he gets a bog standard Lenovo laptop like everyone else. After some time, Monty makes a ticket for some phone system changes to entirely bypass the IVR menu for some reason. IT declines and says he needs to speak to leadership about any call routing changes beyond what's already in place. Leadership declines and begins to wonder what it is that Monty actually does. Monty soon learns the factory has surveillance cameras. Monty makes a ticket stating IT needs to install more cameras. Leadership says there's no budget for additional cameras yet, so IT declines. Monty then buys and installs his own high-vision cameras, then makes a ticket for IT to configure them on the network. IT declines and advises leadership of Monty's attempt at shadow IT. Eventually, Monty's trouble tickets and service requests slowed down, and while I can't say what happened to him, I think installing random cameras might have been the last straw. Jumping down to the comments on this one, there's one from a user called HurryAcceptable9242. It says, "That's awesome. I've never heard of someone trying to get company IT to arrange their home internet access. I'm guessing he struggles mightily with 2FA. I find it really interesting that this guy was so dedicated to the cause that he went out and bought his own cameras. But you can't just go out and buy any old cameras to put into your corporate workplace because, well, a lot of those are made in places where the code might be malicious in the cameras themselves. So there needs to be some vetting going on, and there's a reason why IT says no way." This story comes to us from Salavora M. Dusty Cables. "Hello, I just read a story where the user wasn't very honest about what they did or didn't do when talking to their tech support, and thus got reminded of this story. Quite a few years ago, I was first level support for a large car manufacturer. On that fateful day, I got a call by a user that his internet was bad. He had already created a ticket, and the ticket showed that there was a problem with his router, and that he needed to restart his router in order to fix the problem. How to do that? Simply pull the power plug from the router, wait a moment, then plug it back in. The user told me that he had done so, but the problem persisted, which is why he called again. I logged onto the router, uptime about 3.5 days. He did not restart his router. Unfortunately, I could not restart the router remotely either. How to get the person to do it right and not just say they did? He sounded to be about my age range, so I said, "Do you remember the old game cartridges for the Game Boy, where sometimes there was dust in them, and you had to blow into the cartridge to remove the dust to get it to work?" It seemed that he had a special router that sometimes had a similar problem with dust in the power cable. So in order to make sure that this isn't the problem, could he please pull out the power cable, blow over the connections to dislodge any dust, and put it back in? He agreed, and moments later, I lost connection to the router. He finally pulled the cable and waited long enough for the router to properly restart. After that, everything worked the way it should. Surprise! There must have been dust in the cable. Why do I get the feeling on this one that anytime this user has a problem with electronics going forward, they're going to unplug them and blow into them, just like the old game cartridges? Oh man, that's wonderful. And if something goes wrong for somebody they know, they might tell them to unplug it and blow into it as well. That would be absolutely awesome. From the tech support side, there is another thing you can do here though, to get people to actually unplug their equipment. You can say, "Oh, I think it might be a directional cable, which means it can only be plugged in one way to get things to work properly. Yours might be plugged in the wrong way, so why don't we take that out, turn it around, and plug it back in, and let's see if that works." This story comes to us from Ham on Rye. The disconnected invoice printer won't print. Our customer base was equipment dealerships, database in AS400s, PC network as workstations, and to run branded part databases. This was back in the days when printers were hard cabled. Customer complaint, invoice printer not printing. He tells me which computer it is connected to. Remote desktop, and customer having high-speed internet was rare back then, so I'm dialed into his AS400, looking at the status of the printers on the network, while also talking to him on the phone, and having him be my eyes for the Windows computer and the printer. I'm just not seeing the invoice printer online, even though he insists it is connected to the PC. Customer is starting to get kind of irate. "We need our invoice printer now," etc. One of those customers who wanted it fixed, but is too impatient to help make it happen. I don't want to call him a liar, but things are just not adding up. Let's trace the cables. "I already told you the printer's connected to the PC. "I know, sir, but if you would just humor me, perhaps we have a loose or bad cable." I walk him through finding the parallel printer cable connected to the back of the printer. "Now, please physically follow that cable and tell me where the other end goes." "It's just laying here on the desk." Silence. Say again. "It's not connected to anything. It's just here on the desk." I thought you told me it is connected to the PC. Well, yeah, that's the PC it connects to, but right now, that PC's out for repairs, so the printer cable isn't hooked up to it. Cue silent facepalms. The dude had already told me multiple times he had checked the cable and it was connected to the PC. Once I got an honest answer, it took no time at all to temporarily move their invoice printer to a PC that hadn't been sent away for repairs. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called World War II Gunny. It says, "This is why IT professionals should get to perform percussive maintenance on one user or client a month with no repercussions." OP responded and said, "Laugh out loud, wish it was so sometimes." But to my employer's credit, they didn't let customers berate us, at least not beyond being mildly annoying. There was one customer who complained to management about, "How come every time I call, I get tech name?" Management said, "Because you're rude and abrasive to our techs and tech name is the only person willing to talk to you anymore. It's not okay to berate our staff. Either be nice or we will drop you as a customer." I heard the guy actually mellowed out a lot after that. Going on from this commenter saying percussive maintenance on the users, if you have to do it more than once, is it repercussions? I just love end users like this that really don't have any clue what they're doing. It's like the ones where you tell them to reboot the computer and they turn off the monitor and then turn it back on. Yeah, that happens. This story comes to us from Ilhe, Family Tech Support. My family called me in a bit of a panic because their dryer wouldn't start. They pressed buttons, tried unplugging and replugging. So I get in the car, travel around 30 minutes to their place, I walk over to the machine, glance at the panel, and in under a minute, it's working again. They ask me what happened. I say, child lock. They ask, how did you fix it? I answered, dead serious, I'm not a child. That was my only answer, even when pushed. They got pissed. Everyone did, including me, kinda. But I wasn't joking, I was just being honest. Guess I'm about to be called again later. Child lock. There was even a lock icon on the screen. Pressing any button just made the lock icon flash. Right next to it was a factory printed text saying something like, "Hold the key button for 3 seconds." So I held the lock combo button for 3 seconds, dryer unlocked. Dryer works. End of story. There are so many people out there that when something doesn't work, they just put their hands up and go, "I'm not dealing with this," and call somebody else who can. They won't even take the 30 seconds to read the manual, or in this case, read what it said on the darn screen itself. They could have had the issue solved right away without calling OP out. I guess for some people getting older, technology can be daunting and I kinda understand that, but RTFM really is a thing. Come on. Alright, I think we'll end this episode here because I'm done with ID10T errors for the day, honestly. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button on your preferred podcasting platform. And if you're on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button because it really does help us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow. No, totally not recording at all.